Hello everyone, how are you today? This week we're going to kind of talk a little bit about disagreement and how we can disagree with another person. So our lesson this week is going to kind of focus a little bit on different ways to respectfully disagree. Many times when we find ourselves in a conversation or discussing things with somebody, we know that it's a little bit easier to agree with somebody than it is to disagree. But we can also learn a lot from our conversations where we don't see possibly eye to eye with another person. We don't always have to agree. So if there's something that's happened where we maybe don't see eye to eye or have a different opinion, that's okay. So we're going to learn a little bit about how we can disagree with somebody else and be able to disagree with them respectfully. So if we're in a conversation where we don't see eye to eye, we can do some different things like listen and talk and be able to work through that situation with somebody else. Unfortunately, when we're in a different situation where we are in a disagreement with somebody, many of us will either kind of shy away or kind of avoid the conversation, avoid the situation because, we don't really want to be in a disagreement. Maybe that disagreement makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. So we might shy away or avoid those conversations where we are disagreeing with somebody because we don't want to not have things go our way. Or maybe when things don't go our way, we get really upset. We want to make sure that we're going to get the outcome that we want, but if we don't know if that's going to happen, maybe we're going to avoid that situation. But no matter what the situation is or what the outcome is, if you're going to disagree with somebody, that's okay, and it's all right to do it. So we're going to talk about a few tips today to where it doesn't matter if you're talking to a parent, your friends, your family, anybody else. These are things that you can do to kind of keep in mind to help be respectful while you maybe disagree with somebody else. And to always remember that, it's okay to disagree. We don't have to agree with everybody on everything, but we just have to make sure that if we do disagree, we disagree with somebody respectfully. So the first tip we're going to talk about today is to not make the situation personal. So if we get upset, we can help to remember that we're mad at an idea. We're mad at something that's happened or something that maybe has taken place. We are not mad at the person. So maybe we're upset with something that somebody has done, maybe something that they have said, a situation that has happened, or something that maybe you wanted and didn't get. So we're upset about the situation or the idea of what's been happening. We're not mad at the specific person. We're not mad at that family member, that friend, that coworker, that person that we're discussing this with. It's the situation and the idea. Another tip that we have is making sure that we're not putting down the other person's ideas. We know what we believe in, or you know what you are specifically believing in and what your beliefs are. But that doesn't mean that their beliefs are wrong. So if you've ever been on the receiving end of somebody trying to put you down and tell you that your idea is wrong or that your idea is not being respected, it doesn't make you feel very good. So instead of saying what maybe you're thinking of, well, that's a stupid idea or that's really dumb, you could maybe say, well, I just don't agree with that, and this is why. I don't want to make them feel worse or upset about the way that they're feeling, because it doesn't mean that they're right and I'm wrong, or that I'm right and they're wrong. Making sure that when we get those points across that we're just not using any mean words, any mean ideas, and any mean thoughts. We're making sure that we aren't putting down the other person. Another thing for us to go ahead and do is to make sure that we're using I statements when we're communicating. We want to use I statements when we communicate how we think and how we feel, what we want, what we need, instead of using you statements, instead of those sounding very demanding and commanding. We want to use I statements that are telling them more of what we are feeling, what we want, and what we need. So instead of saying, you go get that for me, say, well, I would really like it if you could grab that glass of water for me off the counter. when we're saying what we want or what we need or what we're feeling and using that I statement, it has a little bit more of a less commanding and demanding statement that's being used. So what we want to do is we want to resist that temptation to yell. We don't want to use any kind of sarcasm or make any mean comments when we're saying anything to somebody in a way that we are disagreeing with them. If we want to get our point across and to be able to have a conversation about those things, us using nicer words, calmer words, and more open words, it will maybe get our point across better and have better communication. Another point that we could do is to make sure that we're listening to the other person's point of view. You already know how you feel, and so you've got that all figured out. But maybe you need to stop and think again or hear the whole situation of how another person feels. So make sure that you're being a good listener. This is a way of showing that you respect the other person and that you understand what their perspective is. You might not agree with it, but you're going to understand it. And by listening to them and giving them that opportunity to state what they want and state their point of view, you're being very respectful to them. This also makes it more likely that they will do the same for you. Then when the other person is done talking, try to stop yourself from thinking about why you disagreed and what you're going to say next. Instead, focus on what they just said. Don't be thinking about what your argument is, or don't be thinking about what you're going to have to say in coming back and talking to them. Really stop and think about what they have just said to you. When it's your turn to talk, then you can repeat any key points that they've said or anything that you want to emphasize or discuss a little bit more about what their thoughts were and what their point of view is. But then you want to make sure that you're not yelling again or using those mean words or using any kind of sarcasm when you're bringing those things up and having that discussion. And lastly, you want to make sure that you're going to stay calm. This is the most important, because if you can stay calm, you can keep that conversation on track. You can make sure that you're having a good discussion and a good talk, and you're not yelling and not using all those mean, sarcastic words as you're having that conversation. You're passionate about what you're doing, but you're not overly passionate about it. And you're not losing what your reality is and your rationale of thinking. You want to make sure that you're keeping that calm voice so that you don't get heated, and especially the person that you're talking with doesn't get heated either. You don't want it to turn into an argument. You want to keep it where you can respectfully discuss the situation. You may also then need to have somebody else sit in with you too, to have that conversation with you. Maybe things just aren't able to be done in that calm voice, or maybe you might need some reminders of things to help you. And there are other people around that can always help with that conversation too. So many times when we're in a situation, we may need to just kind of agree to disagree. We may know that we're never going to see eye to eye. We may know that things are just going to have to be that way. But no matter if we continue to disagree or we are able to think about different ways to change our opinion, we have to always do it respectfully. So always remember, look the other person in the eye when you're talking to them. Look the other person in the eye when they're speaking to you. Acknowledge that you're an active listener. Make sure that you're using a regular, calm voice. Your voice is calm. You're not speaking loudly. You're not changing the tone of your voice. You have a nice, calm voice. Make sure that you're using precise language. Don't use words that are exaggerated like that. It always happens. Well, you're never going to do that. Well, that never is going to take place. I'm never going to ever have that. Make sure that you're using precise language. So maybe you could say, well, 3 days a week, I know I don't ever get to go on a walk. Instead of saying, I never ever get to go. So you're not using those exaggerated words, you're using more specific things. Make sure that you always maintain friendliness. And remember, you're not mad at the person, but mad at maybe the situation or the idea. And with those things, remember to always be respectful. Be respectful at all times by listening, by looking at the other person, by paying attention to what they're saying and acknowledging them and their feelings. Make sure that you're always thanking them too. Thank them for that conversation. Thank them for taking the time to be able to talk with you and to have that conversation with you. And you should be doing the same. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can still disagree respectfully. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Remember, respect goes beyond difficult conversations. Being helpful and considerate towards your family members, towards your friends, towards your peers, in our everyday actions helps all of us. So, make sure that you are establishing a good foundation for having those difficult conversations for those times when we just might not agree. I hope you all have a great week. I can't wait to talk to you all later. And think about how you can respectfully disagree if you're ever in that situation. I'll talk to you all about it soon, and we'll see you soon. Bye.